Hello everyone, welcome back. The Android emulation scene keeps growing at an incredible pace, especially with the arrival of EmuCore X and V, alongside the recent advancements of ARMS X2. Another topic that has been generating a lot of discussion is a future Android games tier list, which I also plan to bring to the channel very soon. But this week, the biggest highlight was the Xbox 360 emulator X360 Mobile, which drew attention after showcasing gameplay running at 30 FPS with full-speed emulation on Snapdragon Elite devices equipped with top-tier processors, CPUs, and even active cooling systems. But what about the average user? What about someone using a smartphone released around 2 years ago, with only passive cooling or no dedicated cooling solution at all? How does this emulator actually perform in the real world? That's exactly what we're going to find out today. This video will be especially useful for those of you with more modest devices who have already tried running PlayStation 3 games. You spend an hour compiling shaders for a Dragon Ball game that supposedly runs on anything, only to finally start playing and get 20 FPS. If you've experienced that, you know exactly how frustrating it can be. The good thing is that the Xbox 360 emulator doesn't require shaders to be compiled in advance, so you simply click on the game and it starts almost instantly. But the question remains, what is the actual performance like right now? Before showing the results, I need to quickly talk about the testing setup, including the capture methods used. The device used was a ROG Phone 6 equipped with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and 8GB of RAM. To load the ISOs, I used a USB-C 3.2 flash drive with read speeds of approximately 550 megabytes per second. All footage was captured through hardware using an external capture card, ensuring that no software was consuming RAM or processing power during testing. For cooling, I used a Peltier-based cooler to achieve the best possible results. If you'd like to check out all the equipment used, it will be listed in the video description. Installing the emulator is generally very simple, and I won't cover that process here. Just choose where the data will be stored, create a profile, and start using your games. Titles can be launched either in ISO format or as XEX files, which are Xbox 360 executables, but I strongly recommend using ISOs. That's because the emulator can properly identify the game and apply specific patches and fixes. With XEX files, games are often not recognized correctly, and several fixes may not be applied. There is also a frame generation feature available in the emulator's video settings. It won't work miracles, but it performs better than similar solutions found in some Nintendo Switch emulators. However, enabling it will also increase input latency slightly. Now let's talk about performance. Right after a quick word from today's sponsors. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. What are you waiting for to save? Links in the description. Before we begin the tests, don't forget to leave a like so this video can reach even more people. And if this is your first time here, consider subscribing to follow future videos every week. As you can see right away, our experience with the original Forza Horizon wasn't exactly great. Even after disabling virtually every visual effect in the game, including shadows, motion blur, and much of the graphical quality, performance remained quite poor. Not even frame generation was enough to deliver a satisfying experience. I also tested several turnip driver versions, both Vulkan 1.3 and Vulkan 1.4, and the results barely changed. Another interesting detail is that the emulator doesn't fully utilize either the CPU or the GPU, meaning there may still be room for future optimizations. For now, due to the low performance and high input latency, I consider the game unplayable. Forza Horizon 2 delivered an even worse result. Even with every possible graphical optimization enabled and frame generation active, performance remained below 10 FPS. That means we're not even close to reaching 1/3 of the console's original speed, making this another completely unplayable title on our device. The original Gears of War manages to provide a somewhat acceptable experience, fluctuating between 20 and 30 FPS depending on the area. However, since much of the game remains below 30 FPS, aiming at enemies becomes difficult and the overall experience suffers. For now, I would still classify the game as unplayable. Remember when I said you should use ISOs? This is the perfect example. Here we have Gears of War 2 running without the proper patches because the game was loaded through an XEX file. As you can see, several objects appear transparent, elements show up in the wrong places, and almost everything looks broken. Performance is also quite poor. Once the correct patches are applied through the ISO version, however, the experience improves significantly. In open areas, performance still fluctuates between 18 and 23 FPS, but in enclosed environments the game can reach 30 FPS and provide reasonably decent gameplay. Whether it's playable or not will depend heavily on your tolerance for performance drops. Ace Combat Assault Horizon averaged between 14 and 18 FPS, so it also cannot be considered playable. Here's an important note: for games that already have native PC versions, using this emulator simply doesn't make much sense. It's far more interesting to use solutions such as GameHub or GameNative, which are evolving at a much faster pace. Whenever you find a game on the compatibility list, it's worth checking whether it also has a Windows version available. I didn't have much luck with Dead or Alive 4. The game freezes on the main menu before even loading the first stage. So, to wrap things up, if you don't own a flagship device, this emulator is definitely not for you yet. As I mentioned earlier, for games that are also available on PC, it makes much more sense to use solutions like GameHub or GameNative, which currently provide a far superior experience. I also noticed that some emulator features, such as controller vibration, still don't work correctly, which is perfectly normal for a project that is still in its early stages of development. We received several updates this week, but none of them brought noticeable performance improvements. As soon as new versions become available, I'll revisit the emulator and bring you updated results. And that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.